The cinema of survival is a genre that demands a peculiar kind of masochism from its audience. We do not watch these films to relax. We watch them to feel the phantom ache in our muscles, the dryness in our throats, and the primal drumbeat of fear in our chests. Among the entries into this adrenaline-fueled canon, Howard J. Ford's 2022 thriller, The Ledge, stands as a vertiginous testament to the idea that there is no sanctuary too high for the wickedness of man to reach. It is a film that strips away the complexities of modern civilization and leaves us with the rawest of equations: gravity, stone, and the will to breathe for just one more minute. To truly understand the experience of watching The Ledge, one must first surrender to the sheer, terrifying majesty of its setting. We are transported to the Dolomites, a range of mountains where the rock faces are not merely scenery but active antagonists. The film opens by introducing us to Kelly and Sophie, two friends who have come to these jagged peaks not to conquer them, but to heal. Kelly, played with a gritty, athletic intensity by Brittany Ashworth, is carrying the ghostly weight of a past climbing tragedy. The mountain is her church and her graveyard. However, the film wastes little time on pastoral contemplation before introducing the true monsters of this story. They are not bears or wolves, nor are they the treacherous elements themselves, but a group of 4 men, a pack of wolves in climbing gear, whose arrival shatters the serenity of the wilderness. The inciting incident of the film is a masterclass in the escalation of toxic masculinity. What begins as a campfire interaction, laden with the uncomfortable friction of unwanted advances, spirals rapidly into nightmare territory. The leader of this malevolent quartet, Joshua, portrayed by Ben Lamb, is a villain etched in pure acid. He is the embodiment of entitlement, a man who hears the word "no" as a challenge rather than a boundary. When Sophie becomes the target of his aggression, the situation devolves into violence that is shocking in its suddenness. The vast, empty silence of the mountains, usually a source of peace, suddenly becomes a cage. There are no witnesses here, no police to call, no societal guardrails to restrain the darkness. When Sophie is murdered, thrown from the edge in a moment of brutal callousness, Kelly becomes the sole witness. And in that instant, the genre shifts from a drama to a vertical slasher. Kelly's ascent is where the film finds its unique heartbeat. She captures the murder on her camera, turning her into a loose end that Joshua and his cohorts must tie up. She cannot run, for there is nowhere to run on a sheer cliff face. She can only go up. This is where The Ledge distinguishes itself from the myriad of woman in peril films. The battlefield is vertical. The geography of the film restricts the action to a few square feet of granite, forcing the director to be inventive with space and tension. Kelly scampers up the rock face, a spider fleeing a boot, until she finds herself trapped on the titular ledge, a narrow shelf of rock exposed to the wind, the cold, and the predatory gaze of the men below. The middle act of the film is a grueling exercise in endurance. It plays out like a grim game of chess where one player is hanging by her fingertips. Joshua, realizing he cannot simply climb up and grab her without risking his own life, begins a campaign of psychological and physical siege warfare. The dynamic between the hunter and the hunted is fascinatingly inverted here. Usually, the killer has the physical advantage, looming over the victim. Here, Kelly is above them, effectively holding the high ground, yet she is completely trapped. The ledge becomes a prison cell with a view of the entire world, a cruel irony that the film exploits beautifully. We must speak of the physical toll portrayed in the film. Ashworth's performance is remarkably somatic. You can feel the cold seeping into her bones as the sun sets. The makeup department deserves accolades for the gradual deterioration of her state. Her fingers bleed, her lips crack, and her eyes grow hollow with the fatigue of hypervigilance. The film makes us feel the texture of the rock, the sharp, unforgiving limestone that scrapes skin and tears at fingernails. Every movement Kelly makes is a calculation of calories and friction. When she is forced to retrieve supplies from a bag dangling below her, the suspense is excruciating not because of a bomb ticking down, but because of the simple, undeniable physics of reach and grasp. The antagonists, while perhaps lacking in Shakespearean depth, serve their purpose as distinct archetypes of complicity. Joshua is the psychopath, the driving force of malice. But his friends represent the sliding scale of moral cowardice. There are those who participate out of loyalty, those who act out of fear of Joshua, and those who are too weak to intervene. This internal conflict within the group of men adds a layer of tension on the ground that parallels Kelly's struggle above. As the situation grows more desperate, the pack begins to turn on itself, proving that evil is rarely a stable compound. It is volatile and prone to combustion. The cinematography utilizes the natural vertigo of the location to sickening effect. There are drone shots that swoop and dive, emphasizing the terrified drop below Kelly's feet. The camera often lingers on the vastness of the drop, reminding the audience that gravity is the impartial executioner waiting in the wings. Yet, the film also captures the stark beauty of the Dolomites at sunset and sunrise, bathing the horrific events in a golden, indifferent light. This contrast between the majestic sublime of nature and the ugly, small violence of men is a recurring visual theme that elevates the material above a standard B-movie thriller. As the narrative pushes toward its climax, the film demands a certain suspension of disbelief, as all great thrillers do. Kelly's resourcefulness borders on the superhuman, reminiscent of a MacGyver of the mountaineering world. She weaponizes her climbing gear, turns the environment against her attackers, and taps into a reservoir of rage that transforms her from a victim into an avenging angel. The backstory of her past trauma, initially seeming like a standard character trope, pays off as she realizes that she survived the fall once before, and she refuses to let the mountain claim her again. The mental fortitude required to stay awake, to stay warm, and to stay sane while trapped on a precipice is depicted with a raw intensity that anchors the more sensational action beats. The final confrontation is a chaotic ballet of violence and gravity. It is messy, desperate, and cathartic. The film does not shy away from the brutality of the fight. When the inevitable clash occurs, it is not a choreographed martial arts duel but a scrabble for survival where fingers are stomped on and bodies are hurled against stone. The resolution, when it comes, feels earned not through plot contrivance, but through the sheer accumulation of suffering. The ledge, once a prison, becomes the altar upon which justice is finally, violently served. Ultimately, The Ledge is a film that lingers in the mind not for its dialogue or its philosophical ponderings, but for its visceral impact. It is a story told in the language of gasps and winces. It reminds us that civilization is a fragile veneer, easily peeled away when we are isolated in the wild. It speaks to the primal fear of being hunted and the indomitable instinct to survive against overwhelming odds. Howard J. Ford has crafted a piece of cinema that acts as a simulation of vertigo, a film that leaves you feeling windburnt and exhausted, grateful for the flat, solid ground beneath your feet. It is a harsh, cold, gripping embrace of a movie that refuses to let go until the final credit rolls.